Commander Lee Taemin adjusted his simple gray uniform and smiled politely as the Vexani diplomat squawked at him in broken human language. The bird-like alien's feathers ruffled with what Lee had learned to recognize as condescension. Human friend. Lee, your species still use such primitive fuel for ships, yes? The Vexani's beak clicked disapprovingly. We help you learn better ways. Federation always helped new species grow up. Lee nodded humbly, playing his role perfectly. We are grateful for your wisdom, honored Kithrala. Humans have much to learn from advanced species like yours. Behind his calm smile, Lee wanted to laugh. The primitive fuel in human ships could power a Vexani city for a year. But the aliens didn't need to know that. Not yet. 3 years had passed since first contact, and humanity had become masters of acting weak. Every human in space carried the same instructions. Smile, nod, and let the aliens think Earth was just another garden world full of peaceful farmers who barely discovered space travel. Dr. Park Sora walked into the meeting room, carrying a tablet full of fake research data. She bowed politely to the Vexani. Honored Kithrala, I have prepared the cultural exchange reports you requested. The bird alien preened. Good, good. Human culture so simple, so innocent. Like children playing games. Very different from complex Vexani art forms. Park smiled sweetly. Yes, we humans are very simple creatures. We enjoy basic activities like running, swimming, and friendly competitions. What she didn't mention was that human-friendly competitions included mixed martial arts tournaments that would hospitalize most aliens, or that human running meant chasing prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. The aliens saw humans exercise and thought it was cute, like watching puppies play. Captain Kim Do-hyun entered wearing the light blue uniform of a peace officer. His job was to make human military look like a neighborhood watch group. The aliens believed humans had no real army, just some guards who helped with emergencies. Commander Lee, Kim said formally, the joint exploration mission is ready. Our peacekeeping vessel will join the Federation fleet tomorrow. The Vexani flapped his wings excitedly. Wonderful. Human ship will learn much from real military vessels. Maybe someday humans build proper warships too. Lee exchanged a glance with Kim. The human peacekeeping vessel could destroy the entire Federation exploration fleet in minutes. Its weapons were hidden, its armor disguised, and its true purpose known only to humans. We hope to learn from your superior technology, Lee replied. After the alien left, the 3 humans relaxed slightly. Park shook her head. I almost feel bad about lying to them. Don't, Kim said firmly. Remember what happened to the Kethmore when they showed their true strength too early. The Federation ganged up on them and forced them into slavery. We won't make that mistake. Lee nodded. The Kethmore had been warriors proud and strong. When they joined the Federation, they showed off their fighting skills and military power. The other species got scared and worked together to crush them. Now the Kethmore served as soldiers for species they could have conquered. The plan is working perfectly, Lee continued. Every alien species thinks we're harmless farmers from a safe little world. They trade with us, share their technology, and tell us all their secrets. Meanwhile, we study their weaknesses and learn everything about them. Dr. Park pulled up real data on her tablet, information the aliens would never see. The Vexani have hollow bones that break easily. The threshold creatures are basically living glass. They shatter if you hit them hard enough. The Moltec need to stay wet or they die in minutes. And they all evolved on garden worlds, Kim added. Perfect climates, no dangerous animals, plenty of food. They never had to fight for survival like humans did. Lee looked out the window at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, blue and beautiful. The aliens thought it was a peaceful paradise. They had no idea that Earth was classified as a death world, a planet so dangerous that most life forms would die within hours of landing there. Humans evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them. Poisonous plants, deadly weather, predators, with claws and teeth. Early humans had to become the ultimate survivors just to stay alive. They developed endurance that could outlast any predator. intelligence that could outsmart any threat, and the ability to work together in groups that made them unstoppable. But the aliens didn't know any of this. Earth's real classification was hidden in human databases. As far as the Federation knew, humans came from a Class 7 habitable world where the worst danger was maybe a thunderstorm. Speaking of the exploration mission, Kim said, we should review the team assignments. Sergeant Yoon Ji-hai is going as a cultural attaché. Engineer Baek Min-ho is listed as a maintenance specialist. Lee smiled. Yoon was actually a special forces Marine who could kill with her bare hands. Beck was a demolitions expert who could turn coffee makers into bombs, but their files said they were peaceful researchers. The mission is to explore the Outer Rim systems, Park said, reading her briefing. Looking for new worlds and resources, standard Federation exploration protocol. What could go wrong? Kim joked. None of them knew they were about to find out. The next day, the human ship joined the Federation exploration fleet. It looked smaller and weaker than the alien vessels, painted in friendly colors with peaceful symbols. The real weapons were hidden inside fake cargo containers. The true armor was disguised as decorative panels. As they departed for the Outer Rim, Lee watched the alien crews through the communication screens. The Vexani flapped around importantly. The crystal threshold beings hummed in their strange language. The amphibious Moltec splashed in their water tanks. They all looked so confident, so sure of their place in the galaxy. They had no idea they were traveling with predators from a death world, killers who had learned to hide in plain sight. The Federation had spent centuries being the dominant power in their part of space. They were used to being in control, used, to weaker species looking up to them for guidance. That was about to change. In the cargo bay of the human ship, Sergeant Yoon checked her hidden weapons one more time. Her official equipment included cultural research tools and translation devices. Her real gear included enough firepower to level a city block. Engineer Baek ran diagnostics on systems that didn't exist on the ship's official blueprints. The aliens thought the human vessel had basic engines and simple computers. They had no idea it was running on military-grade fusion reactors and AI systems more advanced than anything in Federation space. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, heading for unexplored regions of the galaxy, humanity's greatest deception continued. The other species chatted happily about their peaceful mission of discovery. None of them suspected that when the mission went wrong, and it would go wrong, they were about to see what humans really were. The exploration fleet dropped out of hyperspace near a dead system on the galaxy's edge. 5 planets orbited a dying red star, and long-range scans showed nothing interesting, just another empty system to catalog and forget. Scholar Kithrala, the Vexani expedition leader, ruffled his golden feathers importantly. We will survey the second planet. Preliminary scans show it may have had life long ago. The mixed species landing team assembled in the shuttle bay. Besides the humans, Sergeant Yoon Ji-hee, Engineer Baek Min-ho, and Dr. Park So-ra. There were representatives from each major Federation species. Kithrala commanded, while others handled different specialties. The planet looked dead from orbit. Gray rocks, thin atmosphere, no vegetation. But the ruins of ancient cities dotted the surface, and something had carved massive tunnels through the planet's crust. Fascinating, Dr. Park said, examining the scanner readings. She kept her voice academic and excited, like a researcher seeing something new. These tunnel systems are enormous. Whatever built them must have been quite large, the threshold crystal. Being harmonic of deep places chimed its agreement. Ancient civilization, much to learn from their remains. What none of them noticed was the way Sergeant Yoon's eyes kept scanning the horizon, or how Engineer Bayek's hands never strayed far from his toolkit. The humans sensed something wrong with this place, but they couldn't say why without breaking their cover. The landing party set up camp near the largest ruin. The alien species needed special shelters to protect them from the planet's harsh environment. The thin atmosphere made the bird-like Vexani wheeze. The toxic minerals in the air slowly poisoned the crystal threshold beings. The amphibious Moltec needed extra water recycling to survive. The humans needed nothing special. They breathed the thin air without trouble. The toxic environment that made aliens sick barely affected them. When Dr. Park noticed this, she quickly faked some breathing difficulty. "The atmospheric conditions are quite challenging," she said, coughing slightly. "We humans are not used to such harsh environments." It was a lie. The planet was actually easier to live on than many places on Earth, but the aliens didn't need to know that. That night, as the alien team members rested in their protective shelters, something went wrong. The first sign was a low vibration through the ground, like a massive engine starting up. Then the tunnel entrances began glowing with an eerie green light. "What is that?" Kithrala squawked, his feathers standing on end. Before anyone could answer, they heard the sound. A clicking, chittering noise that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It grew louder and louder until the ground itself seemed to vibrate with it. Then they saw the first one. It crawled out of a tunnel entrance like a nightmare made real, 10 feet tall, covered in black chitin armor, with 6 legs that ended in razor-sharp claws. Its head was a mass of compound eyes and mandibles that dripped acid. Behind it came another, then dozens more. "Hargeth," Kithrala whispered, his voice full of terror. "The swarm, they're supposed to be extinct." The Hargeth were legends, stories told to frighten young aliens. A species of insectoid killers that had once devoured entire star systems before mysteriously vanishing. Apparently they hadn't vanished. They had just been sleeping. The alien team members froze in panic. The Vexani tried to fly but couldn't get enough lift in the thin atmosphere. The threshold being's crystalline structure began cracking from stress. The Moltec curled into a defensive ball, which would have been adorable if it wasn't completely useless. The Hargeth moved toward the camp with terrifying purpose. They moved like a pack, coordinating their approach with silent communication. These weren't just monsters. They were intelligent monsters with millions of years of experience in killing. That's when Sergeant Yoon stopped pretending. She moved faster than any of the aliens thought possible. One moment she was cowering behind a rock like the others. The next moment she was in motion, her body flowing like water as she dodged between the Hargeth. Her hands found weapons in her gear pack, weapons that weren't supposed to exist. The first Hargeth reached for Dr. Park with claws that could slice through steel. Yoon intercepted it using a combat knife that appeared from nowhere. She didn't just fight the creature. She dismantled it, finding every weak spot in its armor. With surgical precision, Engineer Bayek was moving too. His maintenance tools became improvised weapons as he created explosive devices from camp supplies. When a group of Hargeth charged their position, Bayek's bombs sent them flying in pieces. Dr. Park had stopped playing helpless researcher. She was analyzing the creatures with cold precision, calling out tactical information. The joint between the second and third segments is vulnerable. Their acid attacks have limited range. The aliens watched in shock as the peaceful humans turned into something else entirely. Yoon moved through the Hargeth like a force of nature, her every movement efficient and deadly. Bayek's explosives carved safe zones in their formation. Park coordinated their defense with military precision. "How are they doing that?" Kithrala gasped. The humans fought like they had been born for it. Because they had been. Every human carried the instincts of predators who had spent millions of years fighting to survive. The Hargeth were dangerous, but they had never faced anything like humanity. When the immediate attack was beaten back, the surviving Hargeth retreated to the tunnels. But everyone knew they would return with reinforcements. Lots of reinforcements. "We need to get off this planet," Dr. Park said, her academic mask completely gone. "Now." "The shuttles were damaged in the attack," Beck reported. "I can fix them, but I need time." "How much time?" Yoon asked, reloading weapons that the aliens hadn't known she carried. 6 hours, maybe 8. Yoon looked at the tunnel entrances, where green lights were growing brighter. "We don't have 6 hours, they're regrouping down there." Kithrala stared at the humans with new eyes. "You're not researchers. You're soldiers." "Cultural attaché," Yoon corrected calmly, checking her ammunition. "It says so on my papers." "Those weapons," Harmonic of Deep Places chimed. "Not standard Federation equipment, military grade, illegal for civilian expeditions." Dr. Park sighed. Look, we can discuss our equipment violations later. Right now we have bigger problems. As if to prove her point, the chittering sound returned, louder than before. More Hargeth were emerging from the tunnels, but these were different. Bigger. More heavily armored. These weren't just workers, they were warriors. Oh, this is about to get much worse, Yoon muttered. Engineer Bayek looked at his equipment, then at the approaching horde. I can fix the shuttles faster if I use some restricted techniques, but it's going to be loud. Very loud. The kind of loud that might attract more attention than we want. The humans exchanged glances. Their cover was already blown. The aliens had seen them fight, had seen their real equipment. The masquerade was falling apart piece by piece. Do it, Yoon decided. Fix the shuttles, we'll hold them off. Hold them off? Kithrala squawked. There are hundreds of them. Yoon smiled, and for the first time it wasn't a polite diplomatic smile. It was the smile of a predator who had finally stopped hiding. Then this should be interesting. The message reached Commander Lee Tae-min in the middle of a routine diplomacy meeting. 4 simple words that changed everything. The masquerade is over. Lee excused himself from the confused alien delegates and immediately contacted Admiral Choi Woo-jin. The Admiral's face appeared on the secure communication screen, and Lee could see the bridge of a warship behind him, not the peaceful exploration vessel the Federation thought he commanded. Sir, we have a situation, Lee began. I know, Admiral, Choi replied grimly. We've been monitoring the expedition signals Hargeth swarm, isn't it? Lee nodded. Our people are trapped on the surface. The alien team has seen them fight. The cover story won't hold. Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment, considering. For 3 years, humanity had worked carefully to appear weak and harmless. They had hidden their true technology, disguised their military capabilities, and let condescending aliens treat them like children, all to avoid the fate of the Kethmore, being seen as a threat and crushed by the combined Federation fleet. But now their people were in danger. Signal the fleet, Admiral Choi ordered. All ships, drop stealth protocols. It's time to show them what humans really are. Across the star system, space began to shimmer. What the Federation had catalogued as empty space suddenly filled with ships. Not the dozen primitive vessels they thought humanity possessed, but hundreds of advanced warships that had been hiding with technology beyond Federation understanding. The Federation exploration fleet's sensors went crazy as human ships materialized around them. Sleek destroyers, massive battleships, and carrier vessels that dwarfed anything the aliens had ever built. The humans hadn't been slowly learning space technology. They had mastered it years before first contact. Admiral, came a panicked transmission from the Vexani fleet commander. We're detecting unknown vessels, hundreds of them. Where did they come from? Those would be ours, Admiral Choi replied calmly. On the planet's surface, the battle was getting desperate. Yoon had abandoned all pretense of being a cultural attaché. She moved through the Hargeth swarm like a force of nature, her weapons cutting down anything that came close. But there were too many of them. Engineer Bayek worked frantically on the shuttle repairs while explosions from his makeshift bombs held back waves of attackers. His maintenance expertise had revealed itself as advanced military engineering knowledge. How much longer? Dr. Park called out, coordinating their defense while treating wounded aliens. Almost done, Beck shouted back. But we've got company coming. The ground shook as something massive emerged from the largest tunnel. This Hargeth was different, 20 feet tall, with armor that gleamed like metal and claws that sparked with energy. A queen or a war leader, something that had been sleeping deep underground for millions of years. The alien expedition members whimpered in terror. Even Yoon took a step back. That's when the sky lit up. Beams of coherent energy lanced down from orbit, striking the giant Hargeth with surgical precision. The creature's armor, which could have withstood anything the Federation possessed, melted, like butter under the human weapons. Cavalry's here, Yoon said with satisfaction. The human warship that decloaked above them looked nothing like the peaceful exploration vessel the aliens thought they knew. It was a predator of space, bristling, with weapons that could crack planets. Its real name wasn't on any Federation registry. Because it had been built in secret shipyards the aliens never suspected existed. Captain Kim Do-hyun's voice came through their communicators. Sorry we're late. Had to drop the disguise first. More, human ships appeared surrounding the planet. The Hargeth swarm that had been overwhelming the surface team suddenly found themselves under bombardment from space. Orbital strikes picked off the larger creatures while smaller weapons cleared paths for the stranded team. Shuttles are ready, Beck announced. But we've got a new problem. The alien expedition members were staring at the humans with expressions of shock and growing fear. They had seen the truth now. Humanity wasn't a peaceful species from a garden world. They were something else entirely. Scholar Kithrala's voice shook as he spoke. What are you? What are humans, really? Dr. Park looked at her companions, then made a decision. The secret was out anyway. We're from Earth, she said simply. What you call a death world. We evolved there over millions of years, fighting for survival against everything the planet could throw at us. Predators, diseases, natural disasters, toxic environments. We became very good at staying alive, and very good at making other things not alive. Yoon added cheerfully, cleaning Hargeth blood off her combat knife. The shuttles lifted off from the planet's surface as human warships continued their precision bombardment below. The Hargeth swarm that had seemed so terrifying minutes before was being systematically eliminated by weapons they had no defense against. As they docked with the main fleet, the alien expedition members got their first look at a real human warship. The corridors were too warm for most Federation species. The gravity was crushing and everything was built for efficiency rather than comfort. It felt like being inside a weapon. Admiral Choi met them in the docking bay. He looked exactly like the humble fleet commander the aliens thought they knew, except now he wore the uniform of humanity's true military force. Honored guests, he said formally. I apologize for the deception, but I'm sure you understand why it was necessary. Kithrala's feathers were flat against his body, a sign of extreme distress in his species. The Federation Council will hear of this. Humanity has violated every first contact protocol. You've hidden your true nature, your real technology, your military capabilities. Yes, Admiral Choi agreed. We have. Why? Harmonic of Deep Places chimed, his crystalline structure flickering with confusion. Why pretend to be weak? Why hide your strength? Admiral Choi gestured to a view screen showing the destruction of the Hargeth forces below. Human weapons were carving through creatures that could have devastated Federation worlds. Because this is what we are, he said simply. We are killers, from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We evolved to be predators, pack hunters, persistence killers. We don't just fight to win, we fight to make sure our enemies can never threaten us again. He turned to face the alien delegation directly. The Federation has spent centuries being the dominant civilization in this region of space. You're used to being in control, used to other species looking up to you for guidance, but we're not like other species. The aliens were beginning to understand the full scope of what they had discovered. Humanity wasn't just another member species. They were something that shouldn't exist in the civilized galaxy. Successful predators who had reached the stars. The Kethmore showed their strength too early, Admiral Choi continued. Your people got scared and worked together to crush them. We didn't want that to happen to us, and we didn't want it to happen to you either. What do you mean? Dr. Park asked. Admiral Choi smiled grimly. We mean that if the Federation had tried to treat us like they treated the Kethmore, there wouldn't be a Federation anymore. The silence in the docking bay was deafening. The aliens finally understood what they were really dealing with. Humanity hadn't joined the Federation as junior partners seeking guidance. They had joined as apex predators, choosing to play nice, and now the pretending was over. The news spread through Federation space like wildfire. Within hours of the expedition's return, every major government knew the truth about humanity. The peaceful farmers from Earth were actually apex predators from a death world, and they had been watching, learning, and preparing for 3 years. The Federation Council called an emergency session on the neutral station of Deep Harbor. Representatives from every member species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall, their voices raised in panic and anger. "This is intolerable," declared Prime Minister Vashte of the Moltec Confederacy. His amphibious features were flushed dark with rage. "Humanity has deceived us all. They've hidden their true nature, their military strength, their technology. This violates every principle of civilized contact." The crystal entity representing the Threshold Collective chimed agreement. "Deception on such scale suggests hostile intent. Predator species cannot coexist with civilized peoples. History proves this." Only the Kethmore delegate, General Techmore, remained quiet. His warrior species knew better than most what it meant to be seen as a threat by the Federation. Scholar Kithrala, still shaken from his experience on the Dead World, stood to address the assembly. "Honored delegates, I was there when the humans revealed their true nature. What I witnessed, it defies understanding." He activated a holographic display showing footage from the Hargeth encounter. The assembled aliens watched in horrified fascination as Sergeant Yoon moved through the deadly swarm like a dancer, killing with casual efficiency. This human female eliminated dozens of Hargeth warriors single-handedly, Kithrala continued, creatures that would require an entire Federation Marine squad to defeat. She did it with handheld weapons in her bare hands, and she was not even trying her hardest. The footage shifted to show Engineer Bayek creating explosives from common supplies. This one turned basic maintenance equipment into military-grade weapons in minutes. The precision, the knowledge of chemistry and physics required. It suggests their entire civilian population has military training. Murmurs of fear rippled through the assembly. The implications were terrifying. If every human was potentially a soldier, what did that say about their true numbers, their real capabilities? Dr. Lim Hae-jin, humanities chief xenopsychologist, requested permission to address the council. She had helped design the deception protocols, and now she would have to explain them. "Honored delegates," she began calmly, "I understand your shock and fear, but please understand why we chose this path." She activated her own presentation, showing images of Earth that made several aliens recoil in horror. Massive storms that could level cities, predators with claws and fangs, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, disease organisms that could kill in hours. "This is our homeworld," Dr. Lim said matter-of-factly. "What you classify as a Class 12 death world. We evolved here over millions of years. Everything you see in these images tried to kill our ancestors, and only the strongest, smartest, most adaptable survived." She showed them human physiology data. "We have redundant organs so we can survive massive trauma. Our bones are denser than most species' armor. We can function in toxic environments that would kill you in minutes. We can run for hours without stopping, track prey across vast distances, and our immune systems can fight off diseases that would devastate your populations." The aliens shifted uncomfortably. They were beginning to understand that humans weren't just hiding weapons. They themselves were weapons. "But here's what you need to understand," Dr. Lim continued. "We didn't evolve just as individual predators. We evolved as pack hunters, social killers who work together to bring down threats much larger than ourselves." She showed them human history, wars, conflicts, the gradual conquest of their entire planet by a single species. "Humans don't just fight to survive," she explained. "We fight to protect our pack, our family, our tribe, our species. And when we decide something is a threat to our pack, we don't just defeat it, we eliminate it completely." The assembly hall was dead silent. "So when we discovered we weren't alone in the galaxy, we had a choice," Dr. Lim said. "We could reveal our true nature and likely terrify you into attacking us first, forcing us to defend ourselves. Or we could pretend to be something we're not, giving both sides time to learn about each other peacefully." "But you were studying us," accused Prime Minister Vashte. "Learning our weaknesses, our vulnerabilities." "Yes," Dr. Lim admitted. "Because that's what predators do. We assess threats and opportunities. We learn everything we can about our environment. It's how we survived on Earth, and it's how we approach everything." She pulled up classified human intelligence files, showing detailed analyses of every Federation species. Biological weaknesses, technological limitations, military capabilities, political structures. Humanity had cataloged everything. But notice what we didn't do. she pointed out. We didn't attack. We didn't conquer. We didn't impose our will on anyone. We chose cooperation over domination. General Thekmore finally spoke, his scarred face grim. The Kethmore made no such choice. We showed our strength openly, proudly. The Federation crushed us for it. The other delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Kethmore enslavement was not a proud moment in Federation history. Exactly, Dr. Lim said. We studied your history. We learned what happened to species that seemed too dangerous, so we chose a different path. But now the truth is out, declared the Threshold representative. What happens now? Will humans finally show their true intent? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Every species in the assembly knew they had made a terrible mistake. They had welcomed apex predators into their civilization, given them access to their worlds, their technology, their secrets. If humanity decided to turn hostile now, the Federation couldn't stop them. Dr. Lim looked around the assembly, seeing the fear in every alien face. This was the moment she had dreaded for 3 years. President Nari of Earth has authorized me to make a formal statement, she said. Humanity's intentions remain unchanged. We seek peaceful coexistence and mutual cooperation with all Federation species. The relief in the room was palpable, but it was mixed with skepticism. How can we trust you? Prime Minister Vashite demanded. You've lied to us for 3 years. How do we know this isn't just another deception? Before Dr. Lim could answer, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Emergency broadcasts flooded the communication networks. The assembly hall erupted in panic as the news reached them. A coalition of the most aggressive Federation species had decided not to wait for diplomatic solutions. The Razak Empire, the Shen Dominion, and 3 smaller militaristic governments had launched a preemptive strike against Earth, hoping to destroy humanity before they could become a greater threat. 200 warships were on their way to the Sol system, carrying enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Dr. Lim received the update through her communication implant and smiled sadly. I guess you're about to find out exactly what humans do when someone threatens their homeworld, she said. The great assembly fell silent as they realized they were about to witness something the galaxy had never seen before: humanity at war. The coalition fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system expecting to find a few dozen primitive human ships defending their homeworld. Instead, they found themselves surrounded by more than 1,000 vessels of advanced design, waiting in perfect formation. Admiral Kessitar of the Razak Empire stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How many ships do they have? Unknown, sir. His sensor operator replied nervously. They're still decloaking. Current count is over 1,200, vessels and rising. The human fleet didn't attack immediately. They simply waited, like predators studying their prey. The silence was more terrifying than any threat could have been. Finally, a transmission came through from the lead human vessel. President Nari appeared on screen, sitting calmly in what looked like a simple office. Behind her, Earth hung, in space like a blue jewel. Coalition fleet, she said in perfect Razak. You have entered human territory with hostile intent. I am required to inform you that you are now surrounded by the combined forces of the Terran Defense Network. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully. Admiral Kessitar sneered. Human leader, you cannot intimidate us with numbers. Quantity does not equal quality. Our ships are battle-tested, our warriors are experienced. President smiled sadly. Admiral, I need you to understand something about humans. We don't make threats. We make promises. I promise you that if you do not withdraw immediately, your entire fleet will be destroyed, and you will not harm a single human life in the process. Impossible, Kessitar laughed. No species can guarantee victory without losses. You're bluffing. Admiral, President said gently, have you ever wondered why we call our homeworld Earth? It's not a translation issue. We actually named our planet Dirt because we are so connected to it that we consider ourselves part of it. When you threaten Earth, you don't threaten a world. You threaten us. She paused, and her expression grew cold. And when you threaten us, you find out what Deathworld predators really are. The human fleet moved. What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy. The coalition ships, built for conventional warfare between civilized species, found themselves facing something entirely different. Human tactics didn't follow Federation military doctrine because humans hadn't learned warfare from textbooks. They had learned it from surviving on the most dangerous planet in known space. The human ships moved like a pack hunting prey. They didn't engage in formal battle lines or follow predictable strategies. Instead, they flowed around the coalition fleet like water, striking weak points and disappearing before return fire could be coordinated. Human weapons weren't just more advanced. They were designed by species that understood violence on a fundamental level. Every shot was calculated for maximum psychological impact as well as physical damage. Coalition ships didn't just explode. They came apart in ways that terrified neighboring vessels. But the most shocking thing wasn't the human technology. It was their restraint. Captain Song Yunji commanded one of the human attack squadrons. Her orders were specific: disable enemy ships, minimize casualties, and capture as many coalition personnel as possible alive. Target their engine systems, she commanded her weapons officer. Precision strikes only. We want them alive to learn from this. Her squadron moved through the coalition fleet like surgeons, cutting away weapons and propulsion systems with clinical precision. When coalition ships tried to self-destruct rather than surrender, human boarding teams moved in with non-lethal weapons, stunning crews and taking control. Admiral Kessitar watched his mighty fleet being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to know exactly where to strike for maximum effect. His own flagship shuddered as human weapons severed its main power systems. How are they doing this, he demanded. His tactical officer was studying the human attack patterns with growing horror. Sir, they're not trying to destroy us. They're capturing us. Every strike is calculated to disable without killing. That's impossible. No species fights like that. Humans do, sir. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to make a point. Within 2 hours, the entire coalition fleet was disabled. Not a single ship had been completely destroyed, and casualties were minimal. The humans had demonstrated something that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Absolute tactical superiority combined with absolute restraint. President Im's face appeared on every ship's communication system. Coalition crews, your vessels are disabled but intact. Your life support systems are functioning, and medical aid is being provided to all wounded personnel. You are not prisoners of war. You are students. Admiral Kessitar was escorted to the human flagship by polite but implacable Marines. He found himself in a conference room with President Im, Admiral Choi, and several other human leaders. I don't understand, he said finally. You defeated us completely. Why aren't we dead? President Im poured him a cup of tea. Real Earth tea that would have been worth a fortune on the galactic market. Because we're not monsters, Admiral. We're predators, yes, but we're intelligent predators. We understand the difference between a threat and a mistake. She activated a holographic display showing the battle from multiple angles. Your fleet was sent here because your leaders were afraid of what humans might do. They decided to strike first rather than risk being attacked later. A logical strategy, Admiral Kessitar said defensively. No, Admiral Choi corrected gently. A fearful strategy. You attacked us because you were scared. But fear makes you make mistakes. It makes you assume the worst about others because that's what you would do in their place. President Im leaned forward. Admiral, what would your species have done if our positions were reversed? If you had hidden your true nature for 3 years, gained our trust, learned our weaknesses, and then been discovered? Admiral Kessitar was quiet for a long moment. We would have struck first, eliminated the threat before it could retaliate. Exactly, President Im said. That's what we expected you to think because that's how most species think, but humans are different. She showed him footage from Earth, cities full of different human cultures, art, music, literature, children playing in parks, families sharing, meals, scientists working together on peaceful projects. We didn't evolve just to be killers, she explained. We evolved to be protectors. Yes, we can destroy threats with terrible efficiency, but we prefer to create and protect rather than destroy. Admiral Kessitar stared at the images. But you could conquer the entire Federation. Your technology, your tactics, your capabilities, nothing could stop you. And then what? Admiral Choi asked. Rule over empty worlds full of corpses? Force surviving species to serve us? What would be the point? President Im stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth. Admiral, do you know what humans want most in the galaxy? Power? Resources? Territory? She shook her head. We want to explore. We want to learn. We want to meet new species and discover new things. We want to push the boundaries of science and art and philosophy. We want to grow. She turned back to him. Conquest is the opposite of growth. It's stagnation. It's the choice of species that can't think of anything better to do with their strength. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the Federation Council. The emergency session was reconvening, and they wanted all parties to return immediately for discussions. As Admiral Kessitar was escorted back to his repaired flagship, he found himself thinking about everything he had learned. The humans could have killed him and his entire fleet in minutes. Instead, they had treated them like wayward students who needed to learn a lesson. Back at Deep Harbor Station, the Great Assembly was in chaos. News of the battle had reached every corner of Federation space. The most militaristic species in the galaxy had been defeated without casualties by an enemy that treated warfare like a teaching exercise. Dr. Lim took the podium again, but this time the mood was very different. The fear was still there, but now it was mixed with something else: respect. The question before us, she said calmly, is what happens next. Humanity has demonstrated that we could dominate this galaxy if we chose to, but we're offering something different instead. She activated a display showing human proposals for expanded scientific cooperation, cultural exchange programs, and joint exploration missions. We propose a new kind of federation, she continued, one where different species contribute different strengths. You bring wisdom, art, philosophy, and centuries of peaceful civilization. We bring protection from threats like the Hargeth swarm and others that exist beyond your borders. General Thekmore stood up slowly. You offer partnership instead of conquest. We offer friendship instead of fear, Dr. Lim replied. The vote, when it came, was not unanimous. Some species would never trust humanity completely, but the majority voted to accept the new reality, that the galaxy's apex predators had chosen to be guardians instead of conquerors. Years later, when young beings of many species learned about the day the masquerade ended, they were taught about the moment when the most dangerous creatures in known space proved that strength and wisdom could coexist. The story became legend, passed down through generations as a reminder that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to choose when not to use that ability.